Kerry Stokes, from slums to media mogul. In the grey pre-dawn of Melbourne in 1940, a baby was born into nothingness. His name at birth was John Patrick Alford, but the world would soon know him as Kerry Stokes, a man who clawed his way from poverty to become one of Australia's most powerful tycoons. Adopted by a struggling Catholic couple, Stokes grew up in Camp Pell, a post-war Melbourne slum of corrugated huts and mud-packed streets. His childhood was marked by raw hardship. He later recalled, "My background was very difficult, very hard, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody," speaking of nights sleeping on the street and days scrambling for work. By age 14, he dropped out of school, determined to escape the slums. This is where the legend of Kerry Stokes truly begins, a tale of grit, ambition, and transformation against all odds. The young Kerry left Melbourne and headed west, arriving in Perth as a skinny teenager with only street smarts. In the booming 1960s, he climbed rooftops installing TV antennas for a few shillings and sold land parcels amid a real estate frenzy. It was the era of Perth's explosive growth, and Stokes seized it with ferocity. He and partners built shopping centres and subdivisions across Western Australia. By the late 1960s, Kerry Stokes was already a millionaire. One biographer later noted that while media giants like Murdoch and Packer were heirs to empires, Stokes came from nowhere and owned nothing before this boom. Yet he proved to have a visionary edge. As Australia's cities expanded, Stokes invested his newfound capital wisely into land, construction, and even fledgling technology. He remembered those early years as both chaotic and instructive. "I had lots of different occupations, and obviously lots of different experiences. I had some time on the street. Australia, in that period of time, wasn't a place where you could actually easily go and get a job," he told ABC News. This restless, survival-driven youth would carry him through every venture to come. By the 1970s, Stokes had turned his attention to media. Working with business partner Jack Bendat, he founded the Golden West Network, a regional television station in Bunbury, WA. This was Stokes's first taste of broadcasting, and it set a pattern: buy local licenses, nurture them, then expand outward. In 1979, he acquired the 7 Network station in Canberra, followed by Channel 7 Adelaide from Rupert Murdoch. He even secured the 3rd commercial TV license in Perth and bought various radio stations across Victoria, SA, and WA. Most of these assets he later sold to fellow tycoon Frank Lowy in 1987, cashing in on his regional media footholds. But Kerry Stokes's grandest move was yet to come. In 1996, he boldly bought a 19% stake in the national 7 Network, Australia's second-largest TV broadcaster. Over time, that grew to roughly 43% ownership. Stokes installed trusted executive Alan Jackson as 7's CEO, and under their joint leadership, 7 surged in reach. It now spanned major free-to-air stations in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and Adelaide, plus regional outlets touching 98% of Australian homes. Stokes's influence grew beyond TV screens. He helped form 7's magazine arm, Pacific Magazines, which commanded over 20% of the country's magazine market. He nurtured internet ventures too. Yahoo 7 combined 7's content with Yahoo's technology, and 7 even dabbled in broadband and innovative projects. For example, launching TiVo in 2008, though that venture later flopped. By 2006, Kerry Stokes had successfully merged old and new media. He teamed up with global investor KKR to form the 7 Media Group, a multi-platform broadcaster with television, magazines, and web. In 2011, the merger of 7's businesses with the West Australian newspapers created 7 West Media, making Stokes the chairman of a consolidated media powerhouse. One commentator later summed it up: "For half a century, media in Australia had been ruled by Murdoch and Packer, but after they departed, Kerry Stokes became Australia's biggest locally based media proprietor." In the span of a few decades, the dyslexic boy from the slums had become the kingmaker of news and entertainment in Australia. Stokes didn't stop at media. Using his private holding company Australian Capital Equity, ACE, as a vehicle, he poured capital into heavy industry, resources, and agriculture. In 1988, he bought the Caterpillar equipment franchise in Western Australia, then called Wigmore's Limited. Under Stokes's ownership, it was renamed WestTrac and expanded beyond WA into New South Wales and the ACT, employing around 4,000 people with 500 apprentices across Australia. This was Stokes's gateway into the world of giant earth-moving machinery and mining gear, a far cry from broadcasting towers. A proud display of WestTrac flags above hints at this side of Stokes's empire. He used WestTrac as a platform to launch further ventures. In 2007, his National Hire Group, majority owned by WestTrac, formed a joint venture with the Carlyle Group to acquire Coates Hire, a leading equipment rental company. Through these moves, Stokes positioned himself at the center of Australia's mining and construction boom. At home on the land as well, Stokes indulged a passion for agriculture. In 2015, he bought Napier Downs Station, a vast 4,047 kilometers cattle property in the Kimberley, stocked with 20,000 Brahman cattle. Since then, Seven Group Holdings, his listed investment vehicle, has quietly amassed over 1 million hectares of cattle stations in Western Australia. It is a modern-day pastoral empire. While he commands news networks in the city, Stokes also commands millions of acres in the bush, ensuring that not a stone or head of cattle escapes the reach of his influence. Even in his core business, Stokes expanded. ACE and its subsidiaries have interests in mining and petroleum exploration, construction materials, and other resources. Forbes and the AFR regularly list him among Australia's richest, a testament to the size of this sprawling empire. Through every boom, whether in sand and stone, oil and earth, or news and pixels, Kerry Stokes has been there, investors at his heels, growing his fortune and clout. Kerry Stokes's journey hasn't just been about making money, it's about wielding power and shaping Australia's story. As chairman of Seven West Media and a leading WA businessman, his voice carries weight in politics, business, and culture. He has understood the strategic importance of influence, using media to inform the nation and weaving connections with every new venture. Yet Stokes also sees himself as a steward of Australian heritage. He chairs the Australian War Memorial Council, having been appointed in 2015, and has poured personal funds and artifacts into commemorating service and history. Archival footage at the War Memorial often credits him. He donated rare Victoria Cross medals and the famous Thulier collection of WWI photographs to the memorial's archives. In 2015, he was made a Fellow of the AWM for these exemplary contributions to its collection and mission. Indeed, under his leadership, the AWM secured funding for a major expansion to honor Australia's modern veterans, a project he championed as chairman. Atop the grand stone facade of the Australian War Memorial, above, one can imagine Stokes's presence, a titan of war memorabilia and patron of veterans. He was awarded Australia's highest honour, Companion of the Order of Australia, for service to business and especially to the arts through philanthropy and to the community, particularly supporting youth. Stokes has a renowned art collection and has made record donations. In 2024, he gave $15 million, the largest cash gift in history, to the National Gallery of Australia for a new sculpture garden. His name graces museums and galleries from Canberra to Perth. Behind the scenes, those close to veterans say he quietly funds causes they care about. Veteran organizations note that Stokes has done and continues to support veterans organizations, families in a myriad of ways unknown to the public. It's said he helped found a support fund for Australian Special Forces and stands ready to assist soldiers in need. In 2020, he privately offered to cover legal costs for members of the SAS Regiment under investigation, and separately backed the defamation suit of Victoria Cross holder Ben Roberts-Smith, moves he framed as defending Australians who served. His defenders point to this as evidence of genuine patriotism and loyalty to servicemen, while critics see conflict in wearing two hats, National War Memorial and War Service Advocate. Through his philanthropy, Stokes tries to balance his public power. Whether it's a grand ball at the War Memorial or a shadowy donation to a soldier's legal defense, Kerry Stokes plays the long game. He funds narratives, the story of heroes, the story of Australia's identity. In doing so, he cements his own legacy as more than a businessman, as a custodian of national memory. As with any man of immense influence, Stokes's life has shadows alongside the spotlight. In April 2020, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, news outlets reported that Stokes and his wife were granted home quarantine after a trip to Colorado. a privilege heaping criticism for bending quarantine rules reserved for ordinary citizens. The official reason was medical grounds, but public eyebrows raised over why a billionaire could skip hotel quarantine while others could not. This episode, though ultimately resolved quietly, fed a narrative that the rich play by different rules. More damning has been his link to Ben Robert Smith, the decorated former SAS soldier turned controversial litigant. When Robert Smith sued major newspapers for defamation over allegations of war crimes, Stokes stepped in with money. In 2020, it was revealed that Australian Capital Equity extended a line of credit of about $2 million to Robert Smith to fund his legal case. Even Robert Smith offered his Victoria Cross Medal as collateral for the loan. By 2023, when the courts ultimately found Robert Smith's ex-squadmate's allegations to be substantially true, reports emerged that Stokes was on the hook for around $15 million in legal costs. This legal support, and the prospect of Stokes covering both sides of the multi-million-dollar court fees, sparked furious debate. Some took aim at Stokes's dual roles. How could the chair of the Australian War Memorial bankroll someone accused of war crimes? A former AWM director called his situation untenable, but others, including the Veterans Affairs Minister, defended him. Darren Chester pointed out Stokes's long record of veteran support and reminded critics that in Australia, it is a free country and people are entitled to legal defense. The Prime Minister echoed that sentiment, affirming it's Kerry Stokes' prerogative to support someone's legal rights. These controversies have humanized Stokes in the eyes of many. He's not an untouchable mogul, but a man entwined in the very stories he invests in. His critics see arrogance and power in these actions. His admirers see loyalty and duty. But one fact remains. Where Kerry Stokes' name goes, whispers follow. Whether headlines acclaim or condemn, it is undeniable that he remains one of the most talked about figures in Australian public life. Resilience and legacy. Through every twist of his life, from a destitute orphan to king of the media castle, Kerry Stokes has shown a rare resilience. He is a survivor of his own improbable saga, weathering business upheavals, market crashes, and reputation storms. Today, in his 80s, Stokes remains active as chairman of Seven West Media, Seven Network, Westrack, and the Australian Capital Equity conglomerate. His wealth is vast. AFR estimates put him around $12.7 billion in 2025, but perhaps more telling is the reach of his influence. Boardrooms, newsrooms, even Canberra's corridors of power know his name. What does Kerry Stokes represent in Australian society? In many ways, his story is the quintessential rags-to-riches myth. He often calls himself the boy from nowhere, yet that boy built something no one expected. He embodies an old-school type of entrepreneurial grit, laced with strategic cunning. He champions the underdog narrative. He was the poor kid who outmaneuvered moguls, while simultaneously wielding the kind of influence those moguls once had. Stokes also exemplifies the complex tapestry of privilege and responsibility. He benefited from connections. His partnerships and boardrooms are full of whispers of influence, yet he's also given back via art and memorials. He exists at the intersection of commerce and conscience. His life arc invites reflection on what it means to hold power. Does one use it to uplift others, to cement one's own legacy, or both? As the camera of history pans back, a portrait emerges. Kerry Stokes stands as a towering figure in post-war Australia. From a house in Camp Pell to the boardroom of Seven, his journey captures the nation's evolution, hardship after Bobby Woobie 2, booms and busts of the economy, the rise of media empires, and the contemporary scramble for influence. His philanthropic mark endures in stone walls of the War Memorial and marble halls of the Art Gallery. His controversies will be debated long after the headlines fade. In the twilight of his career, perhaps Stokes does what he often did in business, looks to the horizon and plans one more chapter. After all, the boy who vowed to escape poverty never believed he was finished. Whether history will judge Kerry Stokes as a visionary crusader, a ruthless tycoon, or something in between, one thing is clear: his story is woven into Australia's story. It is a tale of unyielding ambition and survival, and of how one individual's resilience can shape the destiny of a nation.